Longtime viewers know this isn't the first time we've been here. Moss's Raiden III is a game we've already taken a look at not once, but twice already on Bullet Heaven. Both of which had their place, but are far from the optimal way to play nowadays. Recently, I imported the special collector's edition of its newest iteration, Raiden III x Mikado Maniax for the PlayStation 4. It's a pretty sweet collection with a cool collector's box, dual CD soundtrack, and a papercraft I'll never build. Oh right, and the game itself. It also came with some extra alternate cover inserts as well. And as an Amazon exclusive, this Mikado-themed original coin case. Oh, and you know I had to snag the Switch version too, this time from my home region. But what about the game? I already have Raiden 3 on PlayStation 2 and Windows, so is Mikado Maniax something I really should have gotten on current systems post-haste? We'll find out in this episode of Bullet Heaven.
Let's shoot like lightning, buddy!
The first of the series to be developed by ex-Seibu employees under Moss, Raiden 3 first saw release to arcades on Taito Type X hardware in March of 2005. A PlayStation port would land in all territories between September 2005 and April 2007, which is where we got it in North America from UFO Interactive. It made it to Windows in 2006, but then saw worldwide release on Steam in September of 2014 as Raiden 3 Digital Edition. We took a look at that in Bullet Heaven EX12 that same year. A number of mobile ports have also seen release, as well as a second arcade release via Nessica Cross Live in 2012. Most recently though, Raiden 3 was released across all territories on all currently available home platforms as Raiden 3 x Mikado Maniax. It landed first in Japan on February 23, 2023, then to North America on June 6th and the EU and Australia on June 9th. It would finally end up on Steam on September 7th, 2023. Following in the footsteps of Raiden IV with its own Mikado remix release, Raiden 3 x Mikado Maniax aims to be the definitive way to play Raiden 3 with all new features. So, what does it bring to the table? Let's take a closer look. The gameplay in Raiden 3 x Mikado Maniax is more or less the same as any other version of the game. Its somewhat sluggish 8-way control is back, and the simple 2-button fire and bomber scheme is as simple as it gets. The same 3 weapon types are also present as well, a spreading Vulcan, a straight-firing laser, and the new-to-the-series third being the always eye-catching proton laser, which I've come to call the Wiggle Beam. These 3 weapons can be upgraded to a maximum level of 6 through 5 weapon pickups. Sub-weapons also level up through several pickups, becoming not only larger but more powerful as well. Straight-firing nuclear missiles, versatile homing missiles, and splash damage-dealing radar missiles round out the possible sub-weapons players can collect. In both cases, whether picking up main weapons or sub-weapons, it doesn't matter what item is picked up. The main or sub-weapon will increase in level to whichever weapon is chosen as they cycle through their different forms. Of course, dying will reduce the player to Vulcans at default power, but at least one power-up will be released to recover with. Of course, a previous collected hidden fairy allows for many more to drop, allowing for a much better chance of continuing on the next life. This is helpful as most of the shots in Raiden 3 are aimed directly at you, with very little in the way of static shots. Even though the Raiden's hitbox is significantly smaller than the craft itself, it's still super easy to get hit by these speedy shots that pretty much everything fires. And yes, shots can happen from behind, and they happen frequently. I don't like that. Raiden 3 is pretty much a traditional shmup with bullet hell subclass, a kind of trad Maku, if you will, as most shots aren't very curtainy mid-stage but end up going full drapery for the bosses. There are times when the macro dodge is just fine, but others when the micro dodge is all you can really do. In either case, I felt the consistently slow movement can be hard to come to terms with, especially when attempting survival from every direction at once. Played over the course of 7 stages, Raiden 3 is a pretty straightforward affair. It doesn't feature anything in the way of a second loop like the later Raiden IV did, and the series had yet to implement features like charged missiles when not firing. And while it has the typical 2-player co-op mode in tow, it also has the brain-melting duel mode that lets one player control both Player 1 and Player 2's ships at once, which can be pretty fun once you get the hang of it. I, admittedly, just can't. But yeah, on its own, while it may be a little underwhelming to some, I think it's still fun enough to want to get better. And that brings me to one of the new features in Mikado Maniax. For those like me looking to get a better feel of what's going on in the game, a new collision feature is available that shows the hitboxes for the Raiden, its shots, hidden objects, and all of the enemies and bosses in the game. But not their shots, can't have it too obvious, I guess. Still, this visually demonstrates more or less how to scrape by in hairy situations just a bit easier. You can even see here how your ship's debris will damage stuff upon death. In short, it's a pretty neat feature. Raiden III scoring hinges primarily on the flash system that we've taken a look at several times now. The quick and easy explanation is the quicker an enemy is killed off, the bigger the multiplier to its base score will be, to a maximum of 2. As is the case with many other shooters, collecting weapon and sub-weapon pickups of the same color or type as what's in use will also grant a 5,000 point bonus at power max. Some secret 10,000 point bonuses also exist, such as shooting this sports car or collecting fairies. Grazing up against bullets will also give you a tiny little bit more. A number of gold medals can also be collected through the stage as well once they're uncovered. While these offer only a small amount of points when they're collected, they, along with the number of lives and bombs left in the player's stock, will also contribute to a sizable stage end bonus. In the end, there actually isn't much to work towards in terms of scoring in the game itself. There are no score extends in Raiden 3, leaving players only to rely on a pair of 1-up items that are revealed through certain conditions in stages 3 and 6. However, Raiden 3 Cross Mikado Maniax now features a number of online leaderboards and score attack modes which can greatly increase its replayability compared to its other home versions. It should also give high score chasers more incentive to go for a bigger score. Here's where the bulk of Raiden 3 Cross Mikado Maniax's new content resides, its presentation. Let's get one thing out of the way. Raiden 3 has always been a little more drab than others in the series, but as we saw with the digital version, it can be coaxed to look pretty great with the right graphics card settings, at least on PC. Tate mode also brings out quite a bit more detail. Well, no need for that here, as everything is nice and crispy smooth with nary a hitch in the performance. This is the best looking version by far, without the need for fiddling with anything at all. There's kind of a catch to that. The Switch version, when Tate rotation is engaged, looks rough. Acceptable, but rough. Wallpapers will also be unlocked, allowing for some customization to the overall visual presentation. Like Raiden IV's Mikado Remix Edition, it actually performs quite a bit better than the others we've seen so far as well, and that includes the Switch, outside of some somewhat noticeable load times, especially on the front end, of course. Now for the real draw to this release. Like Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix, Raiden III Cross Mikado Maniax features a rather extensive selection of remix music tracks. The difference here? They're excellent this time around. And there's a ton of them too, which are, as with the wallpapers, unlocked by collecting points through regular gameplay. I'm not sure how these are actually accumulated, and cursory research came up with nothing more than you'll get points when you play the game. It could be attached to the gold medal score or something, but I'm not at all sure. Still, multiple quote-unquote sides will become available as more points are achieved and tracks are collected, but it goes so much further than that. Any stage can have any track at all attached to it, making for a 100% fully customizable soundtrack, which is pretty awesome if I do say so myself. There is one catch though. As of this feature, the Switch version has a weird glitch that mutes half of the audio when the game is restarted. First in the menus, and eventually to the game's main stages themselves. Curiously, this did not affect the sound effects, only the music. I also couldn't replicate this on PlayStation 4. It's definitely something to take into consideration, especially when using headphones. Hopefully, a patch will happen soon. Or in general. Replays, easy to follow menus, and a cool gallery to check out the many 3D models and concept art are also present, which rounds out the presentation. So, what are my final thoughts? Let's get right into that. From a mechanical standpoint, Raiden III Cross Mikado Maniax will function exactly as expected when compared to previous versions, with the added benefit of better performance when big flashy effects happen. Its control is sharp and responsive, and its decently long 7-stage set is fairly challenging from normal up. It looks great with zero effort and features some neat tools like visual collision hitboxes, but the main draw here is going to be the excellent remix tracks which, compared to Raiden IV's Mikado remix, are much, much better. Overall, there's a decent fun factor here. This is the version I want to sink more time into, especially since the new tracks featured here give this version of Raiden 3 just the right flavor. I wasn't sure I really needed yet another version of Raiden 3, but Mikado Maniax ended up being better than I expected, and I'm sure to put even more runs in the future. Heck, maybe even on PS5. And there it is, Raiden 3 cross Mikado Maniax. It might be well worth the extra dips on PS5 and, dare I say it, Xbox Series in the future? Maybe? Up next though, I'm super excited to talk about Trouble Witch's Final. I gave it a few runs a couple weeks ago and it's one of my favorites in recent memory. And let's not forget about the Arcade Archives releases, but what the heck, no sooner do we go monthly but the shooters suddenly dry up? Regardless, we'll wrap up the month with all of October's ACA shmups towards the end of the month. We'll see you all in the next episode.